Hello and welcome to our Sunday night live version of Justin's Lighthouse Recovery. Tonight I'm going to talk directly to parents and spouses, family members, siblings, cousins of someone dealing with addiction. And in particular, a family of addiction journey that you've been in for a while. That's the area of our expertise. My name is Miles. My wife and I, Tina, we've been operating a recovery program called Justin's Lighthouse for about 21 years now. And we have been a family of addiction. And for the last 20 plus years, we've been working with families in a very unique way. Mainstream treatment has failed us all. And our program has been primarily centered on working with the families alongside the addict. Now, of course, both aren't technical clients, but we spend almost as much time with the families, even long before their loved one ever accepts help. Because one thing we've discovered, and it's absolutely true 100% of the time, when families learn how to take care of themselves first, boundaries, self-care, responding differently to their loved one, change always results. But as you know, it can be a bit of a journey, and we're here with you for the long haul. But families that make that commitment and recognize, hey, we're in this too. We've all been greatly impacted by this nasty thing called addiction. We want to learn. Tend to do very well. I mean, 95% success rates in those kind of areas. The families, and we don't judge this, I get it, but a lot of families get to a point where they're done. They've paid the legal fees, they've bought the cars, they've paid the rents, they've paid the bail, they've paid the bills, and they're done. And the only thing left they can think to do just to protect themselves is to completely disconnect. That's not what we preach. Even though as family members, we think we've tried everything, we haven't really. But families aren't taught what to do. So what we really mean is we've tried everything that we know to do. But when families are open to learning right ways, right systems of doing things, and recovery is just a system. It's just a process. It's a very specific process. And when families follow that very specific process, their loved one always comes to accept help. Sometimes it can take a couple of days. Sometimes it takes weeks. Sometimes it takes months. But when the families stick to their guns in right ways, loving but firm, assertive ways, strong strategies, ultimately, your loved one, the addict or the alcoholic in the family, eventually has no choice but to change because they're no longer being propped up by family members. Tonight, I want to introduce, we have a new ebook out. It's called Breaking Free from Addiction. And obviously it's on the slide. And we've kind of written it to be a survival guide. We cover a lot of things, but we are leading up to there's no other term, but a webinar. We're going to do a live event coming up in a couple of weeks. And so we want you to download this book absolutely free. It's in the link in our bio right now. You go there, you download it, but you need to read it. Don't just download it and look at a couple of pages. Read all the way through it and then sign up for our wait list. And then we're going to let you know when we're going to do this webinar. And like I say, it's going to be coming up probably by the end of August, where we're going to teach all the way through it. And we're going to have a question and answer segment. So bring your questions, whatever you're specifically dealing with right now. We want to help you with that. We can help you with that. That's what we do. And so I'm going to get right into it. And thank you for watching, guys. Please leave us a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me a little bit about your story in the comments. So let me move to this second page. And there's a couple of pages in here that I'm going to get really specific on. But just to kind of give you an idea on what's in this ebook, I think it's about 27 pages long. It's not your typical, what we think of as an ebook. I know we have to call it that because it's an electronic book. But it's packed with real information taken directly from our 40, 50 plus year experience of addiction and recovery. My wife and I both grew up in alcoholic homes. We both have our own recovery journey. And for 20 years, we've been helping other families with their recovery journey. So we're not just professionals. We come to the table with lived experience. We have seen this thing from all sides. We've made all the mistakes. We've watched people make all the mistakes, and we know what works. And unfortunately, mainstream clinical treatment models will tell us, well, you just never know. You know, if the addict fails, it's because they didn't want it bad enough, or they haven't hit rock bottom. And and as clinicians, it's easy to come up with these little kind of throwaways, like, well, it's not my fault that I didn't teach you properly. It's the addict's fault because they didn't want it bad enough. But what our background is behavioral science, and we actually follow the science. And we also follow the neurological science. We follow addiction science and a whole lot of common sense. Believe it or not, I know this can be difficult. Believe it or not, traditional mainstream clinical treatments don't do that. But they will use terms like evidence-based practices. Well, let's look at that for a minute. We know, because the science, the researchers have taught us, have proven to us that when a person is using or drinking, obviously their brains are rewired and it changes in a lot of crazy ways. And once they stop using and drinking, from that point, it takes 12 to 18 months for that brain to completely heal. And it doesn't completely heal, but it can get pretty close, where the person, through recovery principles and some new behaviors and coping and emotional healing, then they can absolutely live a very productive life. I'm an example of that, I think. And I used for many, many years and was very productive and successful before we even got into the treatment industry. And I was an addict, and I was addicted to pain pills, and I was, it's not an either or thing. So in this healing process, as the brain heals, as it's changing, it's fighting, it's trying to figure out, okay, is this person going to feed me? Should I come back online yet? The patient goes through a very predictable pattern. It's like a roller coaster, a very predictable pattern of healing. And the days where the brain tends to be healing the most can be a nightmare emotionally for the patient. And when it's at its worst, the period between 30 days of abstinence and 60 days of abstinence. And yet, the traditional treatment model in this country is 28 days. Right? Or 30 days. They call it 30 days, but it usually ends up being around 14 to 28. Okay, so how is that best practice when I'm going to work with someone for 3 to 4 weeks, and then I'm going to send them out into the world completely unprepared and unchanged during a period where I know as a professional they're getting ready to take a huge neurological dip? Well, nobody ever talks about that, but that's reality. And these are the types of things, I just elaborate on that to help you understand. These are the types of things that we bring to the table. This is not just another treatment program. We do things a little bit differently, and that's why we have such a high success rate. That's why we've survived as an independent organization. We are privately run for over 2 decades. We've survived COVID. We've survived government cutbacks. We've survived all that stuff because we don't play in that world. What we do play in is genuinely helping families reclaim the whole family, including the addict. It's not just for families, but it begins with families. And when we can teach you some things that will help you take care of you and learn how to respond differently to your loved one, change is coming for everybody. So on this side, I hope you've already been looking at it. Look at this slide for a minute. It feels like we're walking on eggshells, right? As family members, it feels like we're walking on eggshells. How often do you find yourself blaming yourself? How many sleepless nights do you have? Or how many sleepful nights have you had in the last year? Can you count them? You could probably count your sleepful nights on one hand. Mama bears in particular tend to feel very guilty. It's easy to think, well, this must be my fault. The reason they can't get it, the reason why they're always struggling, the reason why they've been to 3 rehabs and 4 different jobs in the last 6 months is because of something I've done. I wasn't a good parent. That's wrong thinking, and you can't do that. Do you have some mistakes that you regret? Perhaps, but you have not caused the addict their problem. Addiction is a brain disorder, is a medical condition, and it has to be treated as such. Learning how to learning how to implement real strategies that will help you heal. How exciting is that? Well, that should offer a lot of hope, and that's what it's intended to do. But I also understand in the early stages, or maybe I should phrase it in the latter stages, it can be very depressing, very hopeless. Think about all the things that you've tried to do. There's a slide in here, and I'll let me when you get the book, you can read about us a little bit. These are the principles that we teach. We haven't reinvented the wheel. We just do more of it. Families aren't taught about addiction. This is how you achieve recovery. If these elements aren't present, if these elements are not present in a recovery process, it's not going to happen, period. I'm going to go past, we're going to come back to this one, but this is the one I wanted to look at. Okay, so these are all logical things that families tend to do to deal to or to help their addict or their. And when I say addict, I'm talking about substance abuse. I'm talking about alcohol. We're talking about pornography, gambling. It could be shopping compulsions, phone compulsions, gaming compulsions. Any compulsive behavior that is you see as destroying that person's life. It sounds like a lot of different areas, but in fact, it's one. It stems from this internal conflict that person is dealing with, and the solution for all of those is the same. So what we need to do first is we need to get families to take back control of their house, to take back control of their thoughts, of their actions. And that starts with learning how to respond differently to your loved one. All of these things on this page, covering for them. I mean, you know they're strung out, or they're too drunk, or they're too hungover, or whatever to make it to work. But it's always the spouse or a family member that calls in and says, "Oh my gosh, they've got COVID this week. They're not going to make it," even though you know you're lying and you feel really bad about it, but you're doing everything you can to protect them. Right? You don't want them to lose their job or get kicked out of school or whatever the situation is. A lot of families would do that. This is the time in your journey where you recognize it's not helping. It is not helping. It's hurting. We will pay rent. We will pay their rent. Families will immediately post bail. We just got a call at 3:00 in the morning, and oh my gosh, they're crying on the phone and they can't stand it, and it sounds dangerous there, and we've got to go get them out. Well, that's instinctual. What family wouldn't jump at that? If you've been down that road a couple of times, you recognize that it didn't help. We thought, oh gosh, we've got to bring them relief. If I can just relieve them emotionally, then they'll finally take some things seriously. It doesn't work. So we will pay, as family members, we will pay to fix their car. We will get them a new car. We will pay their tuition. We will get them a debit card. We will give them cash. We will pay all their lawyer fees. We will lie to their kids. How come daddy doesn't come visit us anymore? Well, daddy's out of town. We have those same conversations at church. You know, hey, we haven't seen Bob in a while. Where's Bob? Oh, Bob, he's out of town. He's working on this big project up north. And when you know Bob is at home, surrounded by liquor bottles, passed out on the bedroom floor, this is not normal. And yet, so many families live this every single day. What if there really was a solution? What if you could hold on a little bit longer and be willing to learn some new strategies that would help you to not only genuinely help your loved one get closer to recovery, but reclaim your own life? Well, that would be super powerful, right? And that's what we're about. Let me talk about these false beliefs. This is what holds people back. There's 2 pages of this in the ebook. How many times have you thought, man, if I just love them enough, they'll stop? Now think about that for a minute, because as a family member, and remember, I've been on all sides of this thing, so I get all the perspectives. As a family member, when I say if I love them enough, what am I really saying? If I can take away all their stress, if I can get them everything that they want, if I can make them more comfortable, if I can put them in a position to where they don't have anything to worry about, then they'll stop. That's really what we're meaning when we say, well, if I love them enough, they'll stop. The truth is, and you already know that because you're still watching, that has never worked. What it does, though, it helps, as a family member, it helps us feel better temporarily, right? We feel good. We feel like we rescue them. We've saved our baby, even though they're 28 years old or 38 years old or however old they are. It doesn't matter. We've saved them. We've rescued them. We've pulled them out of their nightmare, and now they'll get serious about change. And it's in those times where we help them do that. We get them a new car so they can get to work, and we will pay their rent in advance so they don't even have to sweat it. We'll fill their kitchens with food, pay their bills for a while they get on their feet. That only works with a rational brain. It will not work with the addict brain, because what the addict brain receives is cool. The dust settles, didn't end up with a lot of consequences, and as soon as life gets comfortable again, they will return to use. Okay, and you already know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm just pointing it out, hoping that now you'll recognize it, right? You do recognize it. You see it. You've lived it. What if there was a real solution? What if you could learn real boundaries? What if you understood boundaries in a way that nobody's ever explained them to you? This is my fault. Second false belief. This is my fault. It's all my fault. And I know how easy that is. I say this a lot. Mama bears tend to take it the hardest. Mama bear, man, she's the great protector. And, God love them. I had a mama bear who just couldn't stop rescuing. And it's not my mom's fault, but my younger brother, you can look us up on the internet and learn our story. But my younger brother died from a drug overdose, an accidental drug overdose at the age of 29, which is why we are called Justin's Lighthouse. And that was about 30 years ago. And that's why we do what we do, to honor him every day. And I know that mamas in particular tend to feel very guilty. Well, of course, you've been the sole caregiver, the nurturer, the problem solver, the master problem solver, the family fixer for so long, and now you're dealing with this issue that you're just not able to fix. And so if you don't have enough information, the place that your mind is going to take you to is, well, it must be something that I've done, right? Because it's the only thing that makes sense. Remember, our brains, it's human nature. Our brains have to make sense of what we're experiencing. And it's not always true, right? It's whatever we can live with. And so incidentally, that's what becomes a trauma impact. We do a lot of stuff on trauma. But the answer to that question, or the truth of that, it's not your fault. It is absolutely not your fault. Like I said earlier, have you done some things where you regret? Well, who hasn't? But you didn't create the addiction cycle. And all you've done is try to help the addiction cycle. Or you've tried to help the addict, which can prolong the addiction cycle. The truth is addiction is a brain disorder. It is a disease. We know that. And it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about it now. The science has been done on that deal. I used to be one of those guys, oh, it's not a disease. If my dad, if he loved us enough, he would quit drinking. And, one doesn't cancel out the other. It still doesn't solve that a 10-year-old boy needs his dad, right? But it's two different issues. If we lump them all into one category, then nobody's ever going to get better. But addiction is a disease and it needs to be treated that way. And the way you treat addiction is you can't change a person's thinking. A person cannot change their thinking on their own. The solution to establishing real recovery is everyone involved in the addiction cycle is learn how to change their behavior. And when we change our behavior, the thinking always follows. Always. That's a fact. That's behavioral science. When we change behavior, regardless of how we feel, it begins to reprogram our thinking. That's what recovery is all about. That is literally the foundation of recovery. That's how it gets done. If you've been around 12-step circles, you've heard things like do the next right thing. Well, that's where that comes from. That's why it works. Doing the next right thing, regardless of how you feel, because addicts and families too can get caught up in this just following feelings. I'm upset about this, so I need this to happen so I can feel different. Well, once we get them a new car and help them find a job and give them enough money, then we'll feel better. It's all about dealing with our emotions. When we change from dealing with our emotions to implementing new behaviors, guess what happens? Our emotions balance out. The emotions, the good feelings come later. Here's one. Number 3 on the false beliefs. I have to keep rescuing them or they'll die. I've heard that forever. For 40 years, I've heard families say that. That's what my family did. Well, if we don't keep rescuing, if we don't keep paying the rent, if we don't keep making the car payment, if we don't make the cell phone payment, then they won't be able to communicate with us. Then they'll be homeless. Then they'll be, and so we'll prop them up and we keep them going, and it doesn't save them. Times, if you've done any of those things, make an honest assessment right now. If you've done any of those things, recognize it didn't work. Right? But it makes us feel better for a little bit, but it doesn't work. Rescuing, and that's what that behavior is called, or enabling, it just keeps the cycle going. And it's going to bankrupt your family if it hasn't already. That's what ultimately happens. We had a great group last Thursday where we talked about this. Thursday nights, we have our family group night. And we talk about these family-oriented topics. And something really powerful happens when families stop funding the chaos. When you quit funding the chaos, then it doesn't happen immediately because it takes a while. The addict will challenge it. The addict will resist it, will try to increase their level of intensity to get you to not do it. But eventually they have no choice but to arrive at the conclusion that the jig is up. The families are changing. It's real this time, even though they've heard it before. And then they will begin to accept help. Number 5, I'm going to jump around. Number 5, I can't focus on myself right now. This is families. I can't focus on myself right now. Right? Believing once the addict gets better, then I'll start jogging again. Then I'll work on that book I've been wanting to write forever. Then I'll take that vacation I've been wanting. Then we'll remodel the house, which is exactly why everything feels like it's falling apart. You've got to take care of you first. Think about this. My wife always uses this analogy, and it's such a great one. When you get on an airplane, and the flight attendants are giving instructions in the event of a cabin pressure drop, these little masks, they pop out of the ceiling. And what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to put them on. But if you're traveling with small children, they say, put the mask on yourself first. Then you're able to help your children. Now, I don't know about you, but I used to hear that when I would fly as a child, as a 12, 14, whatever, flying to grandma's or whatever. And I remember thinking then, you know what, that doesn't make sense, because a parent should take care of the kid first and then put the mask on. But If you're passed out, if you're the parent or a spouse and you're passed out, you're not 100%. You don't have the capacity. What good is that situation? Right? The kids are still worse off. That's what recovery should be about. That is what it is about. And that's what I want you to start thinking about. Recovery, this recovery journey isn't just for them, it's for you. And when you put you first, but learning how to be able to do that with love and compassion, yet assertiveness, boundaries, no wavering, value for value in your relationship, even while they're still using, will always bring your loved one to recovery. Let's do one more, and then I'm probably going to end this. I just wanted to jump on for a little bit tonight, but here's the next one. Okay, this is a really popular one. Once they stop using, everything should return to normal. Well, you already know that's not true, right? Once they stop using, all that happens is now they're sober, but they're still irritable, restless, discontent, self-entitled, rude, irresponsible, immature. Nothing's changed yet. They just stopped using or drinking or whatever the compulsion is. Sobriety is the beginning of change. Getting sober just puts them in a position to now begin to do the work. So the next time you hear that, or the next time you think that, recognize that's why it's never changed. It's wrong thinking. It's a false belief. It's a lie that we believed or that we thought was wisdom. Once they stop using, they're just sober. Nothing's going to change in the dynamic. So as family members, you can demand, you can require, okay, well, now you're sober. Now we're going to find some help. Now we're going to help you change. Because if you're just the same guy or girl sober, well, you're going to do what the same person did 3 months ago when you got sober. You're going to drink again. You're going to use again. That's the pattern. That's what's ingrained in the brain. That's the default mode of addiction. So getting sober is one thing. Getting sober and then beginning a recovery journey with a course of action that's laid out for you, with a guide, with a coach, with a hand holder, that's what affects real change. I want to encourage you again, please go to the link in the bio and get it. It's free. Download it right now and start reading it. It's called Breaking Free. Click it on. You're going to get there. It's free. You don't even have to use what do they call those? The discount codes. You don't even have to do that. And then once you do that, we'll know that you did that, and we're going to notify you when we got this upcoming webinar, and you can join us for it or not. It's going to be one day, probably on a Wednesday, for a couple of hours, not an all-day deal, but we're going to spend 2 hours just going through this and picking it apart. And I'll kind of briefly show you the rest of it. These are things that you'll recognize, these logical family strategies that don't work. These are the false beliefs of the addict, of your loved one. This is what they're thinking. And just as an example, I'm a loser. I always relapse. I don't deserve a better life. I can't handle life sober. I'm afraid to ask for help, or help is for weak people. People will always judge me. I'm too far gone. I don't deserve happiness. I can't do this alone. One slip means total failure. I'll always be an addict. Those are all lies, but that's what's going on with your loved one. That's their perspective. Here's one of the pages is about 3 particular myths having to do with addiction recovery. There's a section in here on how addiction rewires the brain, completely changes the brain. This is a really interesting slide to look at too. What's required to rewire your brain? And families' brains have been rewired too, because you've been in crisis mode for so long. Right? Trauma is what's really rewiring the brain. Trauma occurs long before substance abuse or whatever that compulsion got developed. Think about this for a minute. It's not normal to want to be drunk all day and lose your job and your family and whatever, right? That's not normal. So before that even began, there was something deep internally that was happening that led to that trauma. And everybody has trauma. The only difference is not everybody's willing to take a look at it. And so we deny it. We say, oh no, we think trauma has to do with our situations, and we look into our life and we never saw our best friend get run over by a bus, so I don't really have any trauma. But that's not trauma at all. Trauma is a perspective. Trauma isn't about, or trauma impacts aren't what actually has happened. Trauma impacts are about what we think has happened. So all it takes is to have an experience that left you disappointed, and you interpreted that experience as I'm not good enough. That's it. Boom. And that begins to get reaffirmed and solidified, and then it's on. So by the time substance abuse or whatever the compulsion is that the person is dealing with becomes a part of it, that's what offers such relief. So you need to know how to rewire the brain. You need to be able to recognize the script in your own head. What's that narrative? What do you keep telling yourself? How to identify your own thinking. And this is an actual formula. You can practice this. You can recognize when you with every experience, you're sitting at the kitchen table, you're having an experience. You're driving in your car, that's an experience. You're walking down your hallway, that's an experience. The mind is always thinking and making interpretations, making judgments, sensory overload at times. You're going through a very specific pattern that has been well documented. And when you get to the feelings part, the next thing we do isn't what's most important. It's what'll help us feel different, what'll help us feel better, or what'll help someone else feel better. So again, check it out. That's on page, I can't tell what the page number is, but it's in this book. So go get it. How to stop reacting and start responding. And then we've got a section in here on real strategies, real solutions that are going to help you help yourself and then help your loved one. And they do absolutely work together. I want to thank you guys again. My name is Miles with Justin's Lighthouse. My wife Tina. We're going to be on in the next couple of days. We're going to talk about some actual case studies. And so subscribe to our channel and give us a like, and that way you'll get notified when we're going to do this next live, where you can ask questions and we can help you with whatever, or just share your case study with us. And we have some appointment times available. So that's important for me to say too, because we know that so many people, I think the statistics are now like 3 out of 5, maybe 4 out of 5 families, that's 8 out of 10 families now, are impacted some way by addiction. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. You see it in the news. The overdoses are off the charts, and there are options, but they're hard to find. And we are a fantastic option. Justin's Lighthouse Recovery. We've been doing this a long time. And like I mentioned earlier, there are a few independent programs that are still operating after the economic disasters that we've had over the last decade. But we're here for a reason, because we've been where you are and we've overcome it. And now we teach other families how to overcome it. We care because we've lived it. And we're very serious about taking care of our families. So we do have some open appointment availabilities. If you guys want to just give us a call, do you want to DM them? You want to DM? Give us a DM or call. I don't have it printed on here, but our phone number is 405-248-2124. And actually, I'm sorry, I think maybe I do have it on here. Yeah, here's some great testimonials in this book. Right here. Okay, yeah, jot that number down. Just screenshot that real quick. That's our email address is on there. Our phone number is on there. That's who we are. You can find us all over the internet. Read some of these testimonials, and man, if that doesn't make you feel at home, I don't know what will. Some of these families have shared some amazing things with us, And we're still very close friends with most of these people. We've worked with people across the entire country, and we can work with you virtually. So you don't have to be where we are. We're in Oklahoma City. You don't have to be here. We can help you no matter where you are. We do a lot of Zoom calls. We do a lot of live streaming our groups for our clients that are part of the group beyond just this little interaction. But thank you again. We really appreciate you guys. And go click the link in the bio right now. It's called Breaking Free from Addiction. Get it, read it. Thank you guys.